much. And now we're going to bring up the first of our featured performers, J.T. Berg. J.T., do we do the title?
Where were you on 9/11?
Where were you on 9/11? There we go.
I think everybody, we've all kind of got to have a good story for where we were. I've got a 9/11 knock-knock joke if you want to do one.
Yes, absolutely.
So I would say knock knock, and then you would say, yeah. Knock knock. 9/11. Oh shit, you said you would never forget. I'm sorry. I have boundaries issues. So I've been told. But I strongly deny such accusations. And if there's any truth to the claims, then this is a story about a time when I was younger and more naive. This is a story about a time when I first moved to Chicago. I had a month-by-month lease on a one-bedroom apartment in Chicago by the lake over in Uptown. There's one of those corners where all the sort of the bums and the homeless people are hanging out. There are a lot of corners like that in Uptown. If you kind of go east into Broadway and then turn left and just sort of go north until you run out of grass, that's how you know. If you're surrounded by concrete, you've arrived. So I moved in at night, and there was a homeless drunk person sleeping in front of the door, and he was very large, and I had to step over his legs to get my key into the door, and that was fine. But I was coming back and forth with boxes, and eventually he woke up, and he was just he stunk. He had beer soaked and urine. He had urinated himself, and he was very confused, and he was asking questions about where he was and who I was and what I was doing there. And at one point he just said, "Oh, you're that guy. You're the new neighbor." And that's when I realized he was my new neighbor. This was over it was the back porch, second story, and there were two doors that shared the same porch. And so one was his and one was mine. And he introduced himself. He said his name was Angel, and he kind of winked and he told me I was gorgeous, and I was not prepared for this, not that night, or honestly not ever. But it was very important to me that I demonstrate to him that I was an open-minded liberal. And so I just kind of found myself nodding my head and saying okay and thank you and it was fine. The next day was 9/11, so I was watching a lot of television, and in the evening he knocked on the door. He was drunk again, but I was happy for the company, and he was funny. He had a big platter of these kind of disgusting canned mussels on a bed of wilted lettuce. It was not something you eat, but it was a very nice, sweet gesture. This guy was enormous. He had just when he was on that chair, he just fat, big gut. It was kind of fat upon fat, and he had this long kind of hair that he swung around. He kept telling me I was gorgeous, and then he left. He was gone for 10 minutes. He came back and. I think he'd done a line of coke because he was bouncing off the walls, and then he was patting my head and he was critiquing my hair, and he offered me a haircut, and again I was trying very hard to show what kind of a person I was, so I accepted, and that's when we were in his apartment. Turns out he really was a professional hairstylist. He had a chair, in the spare bedroom, a real live barber's chair. That was pretty much the only thing in the room, except for a little bookshelf with a boombox and CDs. The walls were covered from floor to ceiling with this kind of headshots from those magazines that you would see in a salon. And so he sat me down in the chair. He said he was sick of war, bloody fucking war. He wanted he put in a CD. It was Shaka Khan. The song was "I Feel For You." and he just cranked it up real high and then left the room again and came back just more wired than before. And he just kind of just started putting his hands into my hair, pulling my hair, and he had the scissors and he was coming at me with these big sweeping motions. I was positive he was going to stab me in the back of my skull, and I was just praying that he would instead just snip off a little piece of my ear. But eventually he kind of, rustled around in the bookshelf, and he pulled out this little medicine bottle, opened it up, and just kind of cupped it, sort of inhaled it. I've never seen anything like it. He said it was poppers, and he offered me a hit. And so I sort of nodded and said, okay. And it was like nails in the brain. It was like sniffing glue, but worse. My brain hurt. But after that, the music and the poppers, and then he was coming at me with the clippers and stabbing. It was just cutting me, and there was blood. And then his shirt, he took his shirt off at that point, and then he was grinding on the back of the chair, and at that point he was actually finished with the haircut. So he kind of spun me around. At some point I sort of like my soul had left my body and was floating above, and I wasn't feeling anything, but I was commending myself at what a good liberal I was, I guess. But he spun me around. He showed me the mirror, and he said, "Now you're gorgeous." And it was a good haircut. And then he grabbed for my crotch, and I screamed, and he jumped back, and I jumped out of the chair, and there was this weird moment when I could see him trying to figure out what to do, and his eyes were going back and forth, and I was afraid because I could tell that he was not. And then he said, "You can scream all you want. There's nobody in the apartment below, and your apartment's empty. Nobody's going to hear you." And I could tell he wasn't comfortable with what he'd said. And then he sort of smiled and shrugged his shoulders and said, "Sorry," like he was just testing out the line. Where do you go after that? We didn't really speak much. I stayed in the apartment. I was there for years, and I'd pass him and kind of push his hair back and sort of make a big show of ignoring me. Someone once passed out in his kitchen with the door wide open on his back. I took photos of the son of a bitch. I'd learned how to be impolite by that point. There was a point when my father died, and about a week after, and I fell into a seizure and landed face first on the floor. And he was banging on the wall. He wanted to know what was the matter, and he wouldn't let up until I opened the door. And we sat out on that porch, the one we shared, that kind of neutral territory between the two apartments. And it was nice. Thanks.
Caught uptown real well.
There are so many things I love about Angel. He does hair. He's long, luxurious hair. He's not the kind of person to let the impropriety of the fact that we just got attacked by terrorists keep him from trying to molest somebody. That is Uptown. That is Uptown in a nutshell is what that was. Excellent. All right.